Thank you so much for this invitation. I really appreciate the. I was getting an invite to National Farmers Union Convention. I was able to attend last year in person, which was really motivating, and I learned a lot. And I wanted to be there in person this year, but personal circumstances prevented me. It's a real shame too because I was born in Regina, and I spent the first 10 years of my life on a farm south of Moose Jaw. And to this day, I have still never been to Saskatoon for some reason, and it's kind of eating me up that I every time I plan to go there, my plans get changed for some reason. But someday. Um, I will briefly just talk about the campaign Eat, Think, Vote. But before that, I'll just mention that if you're not familiar with Food Secure Canada, we are a nationwide nonprofit organization that works to convene the civil society food movement, and we try to work across the entire food system and look at solutions through a food systems lens, rather than working in silos, because we feel that the solutions, the issues and the solutions are all affected by different levels of different areas of the food systems, and that if we want to accomplish meaningful change, we need to work across entire food systems. So, Eat, Think, Vote is a campaign that has been going on since 2015. Um, and it happens every federal election, and there's even been groups that have adapted it for provincial elections. But at its core, what it is a means of bringing political hopefuls during the federal election campaign to communities. Um, and to illustrate this, I'll talk about my own personal experience hosting an event. So before I was with Food Secure Canada, I was an executive director of an organization called the Payaktovik Community Food Center in Iqaluit. And in 2019, we held an Eat, Think, Vote event. It was the second one. We had held one in 2015. But this was I think one of our most successful, in that it brought every member of each political party out. And it was a really lively event, that actually, and I can't say that, the event itself influenced the election, but in that election, the color of the riding for Nunavut changed. So, um, again, it's in our case, in case of Nunavut, it was one of only two all candidates events in the territory. The other was hosted by CBC. And I think that there's probably jurisdictions or ridings in the country where there's either maybe there aren't any all candidates events, just for lack of organizers. So, and what this is basically the format can vary depending on the organization, and the decisions on how to organize these events are entirely up to the organization. But it's essentially just bringing people, political hopefuls, and food all in the same room, and then you have a conversation about issues that are important to the communities that you serve. So, in the format that I organized it, it was really a kind of like a very typical kind of political debate style where we just had them line up and they each answer questions. But it could be something a lot more informal. Um, it could be, for example, like a town hall where maybe each candidate breaks off into a separate group and people ask them directly, and it's not so formal. Or it could be, yeah. I mean, as far as the format goes, it's only limited by our imagination, and also the where these events are held and who's organizing them. That's also entirely up to um, motivated individuals. So, in for a large part, I think that these events have been held in the past in sort of community food organizations such as food centers or food banks. But it can literally be held anywhere you have a space. It can be held outdoors if the season is right. It could be held in a barn. I'm really motivated about the idea of farmers organizing to hold an event, because having an event on a farm makes a lot of sense for a bunch of different reasons. As was mentioned earlier, it's hard to get politicians to come to a farm, or to even address these issues in any way. But during an election campaign, Obviously, everybody's running for the same job, and they're looking for attention, and it's a lot easier to get them to come to one space. So this gives you a sense of what it's looked like in the past. I think the 2015 and 2019 were the most successful. We don't really talk too much about the 2021 iteration, just because for a bunch of reasons it was not really successful. The main one being that there was still restrictions on public gatherings in most areas in Canada at the time, and so most of these events were virtual. And I don't have to tell you how hard it is to try to get people to attend a Zoom event in the middle of the pandemic when they don't have to. So, on top of that, 2021 was kind of felt as an unnecessary useless selection by most of the electorate. But anyway, the 2015 and 2010 iterations were great, and I think that that's the model that we're going to look to for the 2025 version. And we are in this. It's still early days. Obviously, we don't know when the election will be called, and so it could come up sooner than we hope. But what we are hoping, or what we're planning around, is that it will happen sometime in the spring or later. In which case, we want to prepare organizations for to start to think about hosting an event, and then to prepare for that when the parliament is dissolved, because after parliament is dissolved, there's only a 30 to 50-day window before the election day. So you need to be kind of have your all your ducks lined up before the writ is dropped in order to have a successful event. So what we do at FSC is basically we kind of provide the brand, we provide a toolkit, we provide briefings on certain issues, just as sort of like something to guide organizations. But obviously, what they speak about, what they talk about with these candidates is entirely up to them. And then we're going to collect all of the information on the events and put them on our website so that people can people can go to one place and find an event that's in their writing. I think that when it comes to the topics that are discussed, this varies a lot by where you're running your event. When I hosted an event in Nunavut, I was not going to talk about agricultural policy, but I was going to talk about things like Indigenous land stewardship and things like salaried hunter model. And I think that in the election that's coming up, obviously there's a lot of perennial issues that are regularly neglected that and that we need to have conversations about, like equitable incomes to combat food insecurity. But I think that this one will be an interesting time for farming communities and local food systems, in that we have um, the National School Food Program starting to create agreements with every province and territory, and that will release money towards these programs and towards local procurement. And within the principles of the National School Food Policy is this goal that they be local, and they work into the local food system rather than being outsourced to a big corporation like Aramark. So I think having a conversation about how we structure these programs so that they can incentivize local food systems, because it is a big amount of money that's coming through the pipes. It was mentioned at the keynote a couple of days ago that school food programs and governments are major procurers of food, and making sure that they are sourcing locally is important. So that's just one idea of things of a topic that could be talked about at this event. And also, if we can fundraise enough for this, we can also provide some cash stipends for organizations to defray some of their costs in hosting an event. And yeah, so there's a QR code there that's just goes to a form where you can sign up to get more information about Eat Think Vote. But we are in the process of updating the website eatthinkvote.ca, which is still our 2021 version, which is admittedly not very impressive. But that will happen over the winter once we get our bearings. By the way, we just held our own conference last week, which was one of the reasons why I couldn't come to the convention this year. And I really appreciate all of the NFU attendees there, in particular Jen Penning and Celeste Smith for appearing on our land and labor panel, which was in all my days of conference going is one of the most powerful panels that I'd ever witnessed. So happy to answer any questions about this program, this campaign, if anybody has them. And if not, thanks for listening.
Thanks, Wade.